And what if I said I loved Wuthering Heights? What if I said it was the best movie I've seen in a very long time? I did not have any real plans to see this movie when it first came out. I hadn't read the book and I didn't know what it was about at all, other than that there were two characters called Kathy and Heathcliff. I knew they were in love. I knew they didn't end up together. I knew there was a sad ending, and that's pretty much all I knew. But I didn't really plan on seeing the movie because of that, and also because when it first came out, all of the discourse I saw online, like pretty much everyone hated it, said it was the worst thing ever, said it was anti-intellectual, Miss Bronte would be rolling in her grave. But I really wanted to go to the movie theater, and so that was the only thing that was even remotely interesting to me to watch. So that's what I went to see. And I had very low expectations because of everything I'd heard. However, I was shocked to discover in the theater that I was having the best time. It was so fun. It was so like captivating. And I think that that's really important for a modern adaptation of classic literature. I think that it's really important that you make it interesting. The average person off the street is not just gonna want to see the movie Wuthering Heights if it's adapted one-to-one exactly how it played out in the book. I understand why they did what they did. I'm not trying to support anti-intellectualism. I just really think that some of the criticisms that the movie got weren't fair, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. The book is from the perspective of like a lifelong servant of Kathy, and like they're supposed to be friends too, but they're really not friends. We'll get into that later. So the story is told from her perspective, not from Kathy's. That's a key difference with the movie. The movie was definitely told from Kathy's perspective. One day, Kathy's dad brings home this boy, Heathcliff, and Kathy and the boy immediately hit it off. They're best friends, whatever. That's part of why the servant, Nellie, doesn't like Kathy. Like, she's like, why are you always hanging out with Heathcliff? That's weird. Like, we're supposed to be friends. You're friends with him. You always leave me out, whatever. And then Kathy also has a biological brother named Hindley, and Hindley is just kind of a jerk. And he's a lot older than them too. So he goes to school, he gets married, comes back eventually later on. But Hindley and Heathcliff don't get along. They're always fighting. Hindley thinks that the father favors Heathcliff, which I guess he does. The story in the book, it feels kind of like shimmery and distant, and it is her recalling story that happened 20 years prior, so I suppose it makes sense. But anyway, that was one thing that I didn't necessarily like about it. Like, I felt very distant. The movie was more like immediate and here and in your face and happening now. Anyway, Kathy and Heathcliff are in love, but Kathy doesn't want to be with him because he's poor, because he's not white in the book. That's a change they made for the movie. Kathy wants an easy life. She ends up marrying the rich white guy next door, Edgar Linton. Heathcliff gets all mad. He marries the rich white girl next door, Isabella, the sister of the guy that Kathy married. They both have kids. Kathy dies, Isabella dies, Edgar dies. Eventually, Heathcliff kind of arranges for his kid, who they name Linton. See, it's very confusing because they all have the same names, to marry Kathy's kid, and so then those kids are married for a while. Everyone's unhappy. Then that kid dies too, and then Heathcliff ends up also dying. And then, in the end, the remaining Kathy, the daughter of the original Kathy, and the son of Hindley, Kathy's brother, get married. So they are first cousins, and they fall in love. But you know what? Her other husband was also her first cousin, just on the other side. So Kathy did not have a lot of choices. She said, either way, I'm coming out of this married to my cousin. That's the story. But the movie ends when Catherine dies. The original Kathy dies, and she never has a baby. So obviously they left out a lot from the movie. That being said, it's not the first time that's happened. The original story with Kathy and Heathcliff was the more interesting story. I see why the adaptations don't go beyond that sometimes. Yeah, it would have been nice if they did, but also, like, when I was reading the book, I decided to read the book because I watched this movie because I had such a fun time. And honestly, after Kathy died, the book wasn't as interesting. Like I was not as interested in the second generation story. It was kind of boring. There were long periods of time where Kathy's daughter, the second Kathy, she just kind of mopes around and complains about having no one to talk to and no one to play with and having a boring life. And yeah, it wasn't that fun to read. So I see why they would leave that out. Also, Kathy and Heathcliff had the better love story. Like, yeah, they were toxic and everything, but the whole whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same, or however that quote goes, like, come on. It's one of the most iconic lines in literature, like, of all time. Everyone quotes that. So yeah, I understand why they cut it. Do I fully support it? No, because it leaves out half the story, but I get it. It wasn't that big of a deal. And that being said, like, adaptations cut big parts of the story all the time. Every single adaptation does. Like, they cut entire characters, entire plot lines. This is nothing unique that Wuthering Heights did. Speaking of cutting characters, the movie does not have Kathy's brother at all. He does not exist, Hindley. It kind of combined the characters of Hindley and the father, because in the books, he was still abusive, but he also kind of doted on Heathcliff and Kathy. In the movie, and then Hindley was the abusive one. In the movie, there was no Hindley, so they made the father the abusive one. And the thing is, they didn't really need Hindley to be part of the story. If there's no Hareton, there doesn't need to be a Hindley. The only thing that Hindley did, apart from having a kid, was be mean. So they just had the dad be mean.
Hello, Editing Gremlin here. I'm gonna be popping in to add some things that I forgot to say. So, like I was saying, they kind of conflated the characters of Mr. Earnshaw and Hindley Earnshaw. They did the same thing with Heathcliff and Hareton. Not really their characters as a whole, but just like that scene where they're learning to read. In the movie, Heathcliff can't read, and Kathy is trying to teach him, and they're like fighting about it, and she's like, come on, Heathcliff, you have to learn it, you're gonna be stupid forever. And he like throws the book across the room, and they I guess he never learns. But at the end of the movie, he keeps making Isabella write the letters, and she's like, why don't you write them then? Oh yeah, because you can't. So I guess he never learned to read. In the book, I'm pretty sure Heathcliff can read. I don't remember any mention of him not being able to read. But who can't is Hareton, Hindley's son that Heathcliff raises. And there's like pretty much that exact scene in the book between Hareton and the younger Kathy. But in the end, Kathy does teach him to read. See, like, the book kind of had a happier ending. And then also Edgar Linton and his father. Like, in the book, Edgar Linton was only a teenager. He had full parents for a good part of the story. They weren't that relevant. They didn't really do that much. They were there. And then he and Isabella were brother and sister rather than father figure and ward. Instead of having the set of parents and the set of siblings, they just kind of took one of each, but like conflated their characters.
In the book, both of the Kathys got engaged as teenagers. They were all around that age, 16, 17, 18, 19, when they were getting married and everything was going down. In the movie, they were a lot older, but they do that all the time with adaptations. So Kathy's father at one point made a snide comment about how Kathy was well past spinsterhood. I'm assuming the reason they did that is just because they wanted to cast Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi. Because apart from the casting, it really didn't impact the story at all. But while we're on the topic of casting, that's another critique I heard about this a lot. Like, that was terrible, terrible, terrible casting. And I agree and I disagree at the same time. So Jacob Elordi is obviously the one... I'm being hunted. Jacob Elordi is the one that people have the most problem with because he's obviously white, and Heathcliff in the book is not white. It's not clear what race or ethnicity he is, just that he doesn't speak English when he first comes to Wuthering Heights, and he is described often as having black hair, black eyes, dark skin, and like, he was adopted as a child too, so I wonder if he knew even what he was or where he was from. Because, like, Nellie, it makes sense, I guess, that Nellie would never be curious enough to ask. I don't know, though. Nellie's pretty nosy. They just say that Kathy's father found him in the city and brought him home. But that was also fishy because he said he walked there and back in 3 days, and it would have been like 100 miles or something crazy like that. Like, he couldn't have done that in 3 days. People, like readers, theorize that he could be Kathy's biological half-brother, and that's why her father was so intent on taking him in. Who knows? There's really no evidence for this in the story at all. It's just a theory. The point is, his dubious origins are the main reason that Kathy doesn't want to be with him. She wants to have a prim and proper husband. She wants to have a nice household. She wants to be rich. In the movie, he's still an orphan, and who knows where he came from, but he's just white, so it's like a little less layers, I guess. Another critique I heard was they only cast 2 people of color and they made them both villains, talking about Nellie and Edgar. To that, I completely disagree. I mean, Nellie, sure, she's a villain, but Edgar was never a villain. Like, yes, he was an obstacle between Kathy and Heathcliff, but he was never a villain. He never did anything wrong. He was just like a nice guy who was in love with a nice girl, or who he thought was a nice girl. And he didn't like it when he found out that that nice girl was aggressively cheating on him. Like, he wasn't a villain, and he never even, it's not like he ever even took his anger out on Kathy. Yeah, he got mad at her and didn't talk to her for a while, but he still loved her, and he was never like aggressive or anything like that. He was not a villain. Nellie was absolutely a villain, and she was such an amusing villain, so maybe you can make that argument about her, sure. While we're on the topic of Nellie, let's talk about one of my few critiques for the movie, which is that they made everyone more likable except for her, in my opinion. Like, they cut out a lot of the nasty stuff that all those characters did to each other. I don't know, as unlikable as Catherine was in the movie, she was definitely worse in the book. She was always like hitting Nellie. I don't remember, man. She was just mean. Heathcliff, of course, he tortured their children. He wanted them to be as miserable as he was. And Edgar was kind of portrayed in the book as kind of like a whiny little weirdo. God, I don't remember what he did. I remember him being really, really snide to Heathcliff. Sirens are gone and I don't remember at all what I was talking about. I didn't even intend for this to be a book versus movie video because it took me a really long time to get through the book, so I don't remember it that clearly start to finish. And I saw the movie in the theater. I actually saw it twice in the theater because I really liked it and I like going to the movie theater. But anyway, that was also a while ago. So if I get details wrong, that's why, sorry. I also really loved the costuming in the movie. I know that's a controversial opinion. I thought it was so pretty and whimsical and fun. Historical accuracy is not that important to me. Again, I think if this had been a more like serious adaptation, it would have made sense for them to go more historically accurate, but this was already kind of dreamlike passion project for the director, so I like what they did with the costumes. I loved the scene where she was walking across the moors in her wedding dress with the veil like flowing up behind her. It was so lovely. What I was not okay with, what I hated, was Heathcliff's glow up. Specifically because it was not a glow up to me. I liked him better before, and I know that no one agrees with me on this. But when he was just like a sweet farm boy with the long hair, I liked him like that. He didn't need to go and cut all of his hair off and get other clothes. I have never found Jacob Elordi attractive before watching this movie because he always has the stupidest haircut, like in everything I see him in. And it's not even his actual, like, it's not how he goes out in society, because I've seen him in like press things and whatever, and he has a different hairstyle. I guess it's the same cut, but a different style. Like, he styles it differently. But everything I've seen him in, like Kissing Booth and Wuthering Heights and like other stuff, he always just looks like a fluffy helmet, and it looks so bad. I hate it. It looks so bad. So he goes from this long, flowing, like wild man hair to weird fluffy helmet that he always has. And that was a glow down. That was the worst glow down in cinematic history, and I will never get over it. One thing I also want to talk about is the relationship between Nellie and Kathy. So I already mentioned that, like, Kathy kind of views Nellie as her best friend, but Nellie hates Kathy, is always talking trash about her, is always like, is angry when Kathy gets what she wants, and like it's like within good enough reason. Like, they do fight a lot. Kathy is mean. She hits Nellie, like, she excludes her, whatever. But one thing that I think that they captured really well in the movie was what Nellie herself describes in the book, where she talks about how as much as Kathy and Nellie fight, Kathy has this unwavering loyalty when it comes to the people in her life, and she will always love Nellie and always, like, forgive her for whatever. She would never have fired her like she did in the movie. That never would have happened. But I feel like the scene where they really portrayed their relationship well was when Kathy was dying. When she goes to Catherine at the end of the movie and she says, like, oh, I'm sorry this is happening to you, like, this is my fault. And Kathy says, it's okay, Nellie, you didn't mean it. And Nellie says, oh, I did. Oh, I did though. But Kathy still doesn't get mad. I mean, I guess she was dying, so she wouldn't have been able to, like, jump up and slap her any either way. But, you know, you can just tell that Kathy, like, forgives her, basically, because that's what she does, which is so weird because in so many ways Kathy is so vile. Like, she's such a terrible person. She's so mean to everyone. She will also always be loyal to them, to all of them.
While we're on the topic of the duality of Kathy, I also want to bring up, obviously, Kathy's ability to forgive Heathcliff. What does she say? Have I chastised you once for your abandonment? Have I delivered a single rebuke? Heathcliff literally ditches her for years. She doesn't know if he's dead or alive, and the second he comes back, she welcomes him with open arms. She, you know, asks him where he was, but he doesn't tell her, and she just kind of vibes with it. She's, like, just happy to have him back. Doesn't say anything, like, really negative toward him until he kind of challenges her, and she's like, hello, I've been so nice to you, what are you doing? And then you also see it with her father, how she goes to visit him after years that they've been apart, and she gives him the extra money, even though they've been sending money, but he just keeps gambling it all away. But he's living in squalor and poverty, so she gives him more coins, but she throws the coins on the floor and then goes to walk out the door, and her father's like, no, you're gonna stay and watch me pick them up. And she, like, her watching him crawl on the floor to collect the coins, like, breaks her, and she like falls down next to him and, like, sobbing and, like, picking them up, and she's apologizing to him. She has every reason to hate this man, but she, like, he is one of her people, so she is going to forgive him, and she's going to have a soft spot for him forever. And then you see it again later on when after he dies, she's, like, sobbing over his body, and then she gets up and kicks it, and then later she, like, regrets kicking it. She's like, I shouldn't have done that. Everybody wants a complex female character until they get one, and then they all turn on her. She was kind of rancid, but, like, at the same time, I will forgive her because I know she would forgive me.
It's very, very beautiful. I love the shots, you know, the wide sweeping shots of the moors, and the music was so good too. I loved the music. I know a lot of people don't like it when you put modern music in period dramas, but I like it. I thought it was really good. I thought it also, like, fit the vibe, even though it was, like, old-timey. It still set the tone.
Other random tidbits. I loved the scene, like, earlier on in the movie where Kathy, she runs out into the rain after her father because he's going to town again to gamble and drink and whatever, and she, like, holds her hands above her face to block the rain, and then Heathcliff just takes over for her, and he holds his own hands above her eyes to, like, shield her from the rain. Oh my god, that was so cute. Long-haired Heathcliff was so cute. Okay, so I talked a little bit about how Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi are too old to play Kathy and Heathcliff. Also, the actors who played Nellie was too old to play Nellie. in the book, but she was too old to play herself in the movie. Like, the young version of Nellie was like a little bit older than Kathy, but still around that age. And the old version of Nellie is like way older than Margot Robbie. I mean, I don't know how old she actually is, but she looks way older than Margot Robbie. And that was like kind of distracting. I was like, who is this old lady? Is this supposed to be like her peer? Or is this supposed to be like a mother figure? Also, as much as they changed between the book and the movie, I noticed that a lot of the dialogue was the same. There was direct lines, a lot of direct lines taken from the book. I noticed it especially during the scene where Kathy is telling Nellie that she accepted Edgar's proposal and that she's not gonna, and that she's telling Nellie like, oh, but this is gonna be good for us, like for Heathcliff too. I'm gonna help him rise in society. And Nellie says, like, you will not find him so pliable as you imagine, or something like that. Like, Heathcliff doesn't want your husband's money. Like, that line was taken directly from the book, and a bunch of others in that conversation too. So yeah, like, it was like a crazy adaptation in some ways, but in some ways it wasn't. Okay, anyway, yeah, I think that's it.
Anyway, yes, the movie had its flaws. There were valid critiques, but I think all in all, it's a good movie. So maybe go watch it.
Bye.
Look how much stuff has landed here while I've been sitting here. This tree has it out for me. Oh, which Bronte wrote this? Charlotte or Emily? Ugh, there's a bug on me. I just felt it.